Everything changes one late night when your family members begin fighting for their lives against demonic presences and horrific infestations. You try fighting back against the hauntings, but it just makes things so much worse. That's the story we're covering today. Grab your snacks. It was the middle of the night in an old one-story Gary, Indiana home where a mother named Latoya Ammons was woken up by one of the most anxiety-inducing and dreadful noises that she'd ever heard. A 12-year-old little girl, her daughter, began abruptly screaming, waking up everyone in the house. She thought something must be terribly wrong, some sort of danger is around the home. And there was this giant swarm of thick black flies just crowding the entire corner near where the porch was. This thick swarm of black flies were corralling around her 12-year-old daughter, trying to attack her. And even though it was mid-December, the dead of winter, everyone was hysterical, dazed, confused. Now the entire household was trying to group against these flies and kill them off together. The grandmother, Rosa, she was quoted in this story saying, "We kept killing them and kept fighting them off and kept killing them, but they just kept coming back." And the swarm started to grow even thicker. And their grandmother, being a deeply religious person, she thought to herself, well, what is going on here? There has to be some sort of other explanation because this was something biblical. And she knew that there was some sort of evil presence lurking by near the house. When Latoya saw her own mother terrified and trying to pray away the flies, she then proceeded to go into her own bedroom and grab some of the holy oil that she kept on her dresser and would go on to cover her kids' hands, feet, foreheads, all in this holy oil to try in a desperate attempt shielding them from any evil that was lurking around the house. Well, a couple of days later, they had all thought that the problem had just dissipated and these flies were nowhere to be found. And it was just a calm evening. Latoya was relaxing in the living room and she was actually home alone. Something caught her attention. She started to hear what she would describe as a thumping sound. They were large footsteps that she could hear coming from inside the basement. It sounded like to her they were ascending up the stairs, and it was followed by a creaking. The door to the basement started opening, and she thought, what the heck is going on here? I am home alone, so this door couldn't just be opening by itself. Who's down there? She got up, absolutely baffled, and quickly made her way to the kitchen to see where these bizarre noises were coming from, but nothing was there. Just the door wide open to the dark basement. And it made her feel like, is my mom correct? Is there actually indeed something that I can't see? A demonic presence that is roaming around the home? Even if there was, what could she do? She felt helpless and she didn't know what the next thing to protect her children would be. So in that moment, all she really could do was close the door behind her and make sure it was locked so that it wouldn't just creak back open by itself, even after hearing those stomping footsteps. But that would not be nearly enough to protect her family. Just the next day, in the evening hours, Rosa told Latoya that she heard her grandson as she was passing by his room, a 7-year-old boy, locked himself in his closet, and she overheard him talking to something, an entity, she calls it. And while he was talking to this entity, she overheard him talking about what it's like to die. So Latoya took it upon herself to bring her 7-year-old son into her room privately, and she asked him, "Hey, why did your grandma overhear you talking about something so terrible?" And he just responded to her saying, "That's just what I was talking to my friend about." Just a couple of days after they had found the 7-year-old talking to an entity in his closet, Latoya, she was relaxing in the living room, taking a nap on the couch. But something started to get her attention, and she thought it was her kids. So she was trying to get her bearings and kind of squinting to see and say hi to whoever was roaming around, playing around the living room. But when she was able to get just enough of a picture about what was roaming around, quickly pacing around the room, she started to notice that it was an adult figure, a large-shaped shadowed figure roaming around right there in front of her where she was sleeping. When she sprung up out of her nap, still just groggy, trying to understand if she had been hallucinating or sleepwalking or something after seeing a glimpse of this shadowed adult figure, there was no one to pair with that shadow she had seen, except when she looked at the floor right beneath her, and then that's when she saw it. There was a bunch of wet footprints that tracked all around the living room. She felt like it was insanity. They started to spread the word around the neighborhood, but it just sounded like crazy talk. Nobody knew what was going on, how to help them, or whether to even believe them. In fact, one person, a local neighbor on the same street, well, they actually had thought that the family, including the kids, had begun to suffer from some mental health issues, and that maybe they were just making up some stories for their mother as a part of dramatics. They ended up calling the Indiana Child Protective Services to have a wellness check there inside the home on everybody involved. A woman named Valerie pretty quickly soon after arrived at their residence after that complaint, who was a Child Protective Services manager who even brought along with her the local police department. And as they were beginning their interviews, first they interviewed LaToya, then they interviewed Rosa and all of the preceding children. But at the end of it, well, Valerie, she deemed them all to be sound of mind. Valerie, however, did note in particular a moment that left her feeling completely uneasy, as being a sort of psychosis that presented itself, even though the evaluations all did add up. And it was when she visited and spoke to one of LaToya's sons, the 7-year-old boy that locked himself in the closet talking to the entity. Throughout her entire evaluation, everything seemed normal, and then all of a sudden, his personality just completely switched. She watched him go up to his 12-year-old brother, teeth grinding. He started growling and choking his 12-year-old brother, saying, "It's time to die. I will kill you." Something terrible happened, and it wasn't something of a psychosis. This was something physical that they witnessed for their very eyes. He actually got sent backward, gliding across the floor, and started levitating up through the wall, uncontrollably just floating up there, and they couldn't stop him. They didn't know what to do. They weren't paranormal experts. They had no responsibility about how to go about any of this, so they just took off. There was some sort of demonic presence lurking around the home, manifesting itself, and starting to attach its presence to each family member one by one. And Rosa, once again, heard her same screaming voice of the daughter that had the flies attack her, so they ran back to her bedroom once again. This time her daughter was levitating up in the air above her bedroom, flailing. All they really could do was just watch it happen, because there was nothing, and if they tried to touch her, she would just get worse. She started slowly descending. Her body started to slowly calm itself down, and before they knew it, she ended up back on her bed, lying down so naturally as if nothing ever happened, and as soon as her body hit the mattress, she just passed out. She didn't remember a thing about what had just happened, even though a couple of minutes earlier she was up in the air. Police hadn't worked. Psychiatry was hopeless. There was one last thing that this family was considering. They were going to contact the local priest from one of the local churches to try and perform an exorcism, or at least a blessing on the entire property. So the priest arrived. He went around the entire house with a cross, saying prayer after prayer. He started in the basement, worked his way up to the room where the flies were swarming in their daughter's bedroom, and he got really every inch of the interior of the house. But something stopped him in his tracks that day. The priest felt this evil presence resisting this blessing of the holy oil and the prayers, and he knew in that moment there's no going back, and there's too much evil inside this house. He told them that there was up to 200 different evil presences, evil demons lurking around the house trying to possess her family members. Eventually, the entire family was indeed forced out of the home. In fact, LaToya actually had to end up going her separate way for a little while the rest of her kids, they were actually taken into custody by Child Protective Services, and none of the family was allowed back into the home legally. Meanwhile, the entire property was actually bought out coined the portal to demons, and eventually condemned by none other than Zach Bagan, who is the host of the TV show Ghost Adventures.